So let me introduce myself. First, my name is Dan Rein. I'm the chemist here at Jonas Chemical. We're located in Bensalem, Pennsylvania. And today, today I'm here to talk about the chemistry of swimming pools. So, like I said, this is the first of four short webinars, 15 to 20 minutes, something like that. Each webinar will be on a different topic. This one is related to pool openings. Like I said, some of the first things that we do when we open pools, if it's not clear, is use a flocculant. And even if it is clear, we need to get chlorine in the pool. So hopefully you guys can take away some knowledge and maybe a little different perspective from this. Okay. Okay, let's get into it then. Okay. So this is what our goal is. We want to have clean water that looks clear, and that means it's safe. No living organisms, microorganisms, bacteria, no algae. Clean, clear, and safe water to enjoy. So this is not what you want your pool to look like, but sometimes, especially if you open it, or some pools look like this. So how do you go from this to this water? So okay, one of the best ways is to add a flocculant, or they call it flocking. Flock your pool. You add what's called a flocculant to the pool water. It coagulates particles and drops them to the bottom of the pool. You come back the next day and can vacuum all the stuff up, and the water is pretty much cleared up. So two ways you can do this. You can use alum, which is a chemical that's been used for hundreds or thousands of years in water treatment to clear and clean water. We have a better product for swimming pools called HydroFlock. That's a liquid flocculant that is similar. It functions similarly. Any kind of flocculant, the idea is to coagulate particles together and then either drop them to the bottom if it's a heavier weight molecule, or coagulate them so the filtration system can remove them. So flocking the pool is great for medium to severely green pools. Works really well. If it's not so bad, or flocking is not an option for whatever reason, the other route you can take is by letting your filtration system take the impurities out of the water. So if you when you open the pool and you go this route, you want to run the filter continuously 24 hours until the pool is cleared up, and backwash when necessary. That's gets the stuff out of cleans the filter off, so it can have capacity for filtering stuff. So that doesn't work as well if you have a heavily green pool where you can't even see the bottom, or can't see the steps. If it's real dense, flocking's the obvious best way to go. But otherwise, you want to superchlorinate, run your filter continuously, and you can add a clarifier, which is also a type of flocculant. Clarifier is a lower weight flocculant that will coagulate particles for the filtration system. It won't drop it to the bottom, but it makes it easier to filter out. And also, brushing is very important, because anything that sticks to the sides of the pool, even after it's clear, it could infect your pool if it's algae. So you got to get all that stuff off and out of the pool one way or another, vacuuming it to waste, or letting the filter system take it out. And then, the other option is to run away. If the pool is too bad, you might not even, it might not even be worth it, or just drain it or something like that. Like if a pool is looking like this, you might want to just run away. Pretty scary stuff. So I want to show a picture. This is from my lab of two beakers. The one on the left, both are filled with tap water. Similar to your pool. Swimming pools are filled with tap water, either from a well or from a city source. So filled these two beakers with tap water. The one on the left is just water. The one on the right, I added a flocculant to. So you can see it kind of cloudy, and you can see along on the bottom of the beaker, you can see it really clouding up. That's after about 5 or 10 minutes. The flock dropped to the bottom and forms that precipitate along the bottom of the beaker. And if I waited longer, you can still see even in the top is a little bit cloudy, but the longer you wait, all that stuff will drop to the bottom. So the same thing happens in your pool when you use the flocculant as as in these beakers. That's what it looks like when you flock a pool, whether it's a pool or on a smaller scale in the lab beaker. So how these flocculants are a class of chemical. They're called cationic polymers. So what that means is that these molecules have a positive charge. Okay, so just like so the impurities in the water effectively have a negative charge. So when you add something with a positive charge, it works just like a magnet. It attracts the things with the negative charge. So they stick together like a magnet. It coagulates around the particles, traps the particles, and sort of like a magnetic bond. And then it'll cause a precipitate to form, which is just like a cloudy solid formation. And then you wait overnight, and the next day you come back. That's enough time for all those particles to drop to the ground, to drop to the bottom of the pool. So you turn off the filter system, so the water is not circulating. That lets everything drop down over the course of a few hours or overnight. So clarifiers, like I said, they're also the same class of molecules. They're basically have a lower weight, so that instead of dropping whereas if you use a hydrofloc, that'll drop the precipitate and all the particles in them to the bottom of the vacuum. The clarifiers, they bind these molecules and make bigger particles, so that your filter system can take them out much easier and quicker. So the clarifiers also work really good as a preventative thing. Even over time, you even when your pool water is clean, you do accumulate over time dust and small particles in the water that might be too small for the filter system to take out. So by using one of the clarifiers, say like a small dose every week, you'll take those particles that accumulate out, and it'll freshen up your water, make it sparkle a little bit more. It tends to get dull if too many particles accumulate, and it'll help prevent other more serious problems. So we have the hydrofloc, which is the typical floc that drops to the bottom for you to vacuum to waste. And we have two clarifiers. We have diamond blue clarifier and majestic blue, which is a better quality clarifier, but they all work similar. Okay, so for different types of filters, you're gonna have different micron size particles that they can filter. So it's not an exact number; it's a range. Sand has the largest size particles that it filters. It'll filter anything larger than 20 or 30. Cartridge is 8 to 15, and DE is 1 to 5 microns is pretty small. And then you can see the types of, on the right, you can see the types of things: blood cells, human hairs, and about the average size of these things So depending on your filter type, that'll have an effect on what gets filtered out and how fast it gets filtered out, how fast it clogs up. If you have a sand filter that filters out larger microns, adding a clarifier will probably be the most useful with a sand filter, because it'll filter out much smaller particles than you otherwise would be able to filter out. So yeah, after your pool is clear, you can test and balance your water. That's really important too, but it's hard to do if your water's cloudy, because it can interfere with the testing, and the chemistry. Your pool chemistry might also be changing. If you're adding large amounts of chlorine when you first open it, and just environmental factors, other factors that can affect the chemistry. So you don't want to start getting too heavy into balancing it right away. Maybe if the pH is way off or something like that, but you can't really fine tune it until at least the water is clear and it's operating somewhat normally. Okay, so I just want to talk now about some of the products we have that really just ways that you can use some of the products we have to reduce chlorine usage in your pool. So there's some really great ways to do that. You don't, everyone knows there's a shortage on the trichlor tabs. So I think most people, probably a lot of people, use them for sanitation, but these are effective with no matter what type of sanitation you use. They'll help you use less of it, and help your sanitation be more effective. They'll supplement the what the chlorine does, which is either killing or oxidizing. It'll let the chlorine do more work. It'll take some of the workload off of the chlorine. So the first thing that is seems to be becoming slowly more popular, and people knowing about it, is using borates, which is not considered an algicide. It's considered an algistat, which means that it slows microorganism growth. So if things can't grow in your water, they won't cause any problems. So you still need chlorine. You can't sanitize a pool just with this, but it's a great supplement for your chlorine. It'll take a lot of the workload off it and allow it to do more of the oxidation that is unique to chlorine. So chlorine both kills microorganisms and algae, living things, and it does oxidation, which means even after things are dead, they need to get broken down and filtered out of your pool somehow. So chlorine does both. Most chemicals, some can sanitize and kill things but not oxidize, and some can oxidize but not sanitize, and chlorine does both. It's really great chemical, chlorine. Really useful. So the good thing is you only need to use it once per season. So I'd suggest adding it, almost maybe right when you open your pool. It doesn't decompose. It doesn't break down in the water, except unless you drain it, the water. So if you add it in the beginning of a season, you'll have some borates level throughout the whole season. Hopefully, if you don't, as long as you don't drain too much water out. So the recommended dose is somewhere between 30 and 50 ppms. That's about 2 pounds per 1,000 gallons, and you need pH lower to compensate, because it'll raise the pH of your pool water if you don't lower it back down. So it's a large dose in the beginning, but you don't have to add it. You don't have to worry about adding it, except for the one time per season, and it'll reduce your chlorine use. Also makes your water sparkly and silky because it lowers the water tension in the water. So it gives it almost kind of like a sticky, not sticky, but kind of like smooth, silky kind of feel. And so you can, once you add borates, if you want to check them, you can use either special borate test strips and the 4330 and 4331 spin disc from Lamont. They both test, any of those ways you can test for borates. They're also formulated in our multi-tabs, our 3-inch tabs with multi-tabs with borates. So another thing that can affect your chlorine usage, and that is pretty well known by now, but I'm not sure how much of the information out there is really good, is about phosphates, which is basically a food source for algae and microorganisms. So phosphates, using a phosphate remover will, help, greatly help supplement your chlorine and reduce your chlorine use, but only if you actually have phosphates in your water. So the way to test for that is either with test strips that I kind of like the test strips. They have a higher range than the 4329 spin disc, but either way, you'll be able to tell if you have high phosphates. So yeah, they indirectly increase your chlorine demand because they give food. They make the algae and microorganisms so they grow faster, and so the faster they grow, the more chlorine you need to keep up with them. So typically, phosphates in your water should be below 500 ppb, which is parts per billion. That's 1,000 times less than parts per million. So, but that's how we measure phosphates. And then like I typically see, above like 1,000 to 2,000 ppb is when people start to have problems with maintaining a chlorine residual. So I would definitely, if they're in that range, use a phosphate remover. And like, so in some areas of the country or heavy farming areas, you see higher phosphate levels, like really high levels sometimes in the groundwater, and it makes its way into the tap water, whether it's in the city or the well water. And because the fertilizers contain phosphates and nitrates, so they make their way into the water source that you're filling your pool from. So a great way to know if that is affecting your pool is to test the water source, test it for phosphates, and then you'll know if, when you fill up your pool, if you need to add a phosphate remover, maybe every time you fill up your pool, if you have high phosphates in your tap water, but otherwise just remove them. They just need to be removed if they're high or if they're present. So that's our phosphate remover is called PhosX. It's maximum concentration I've seen on the market, 27% lanthanum chloride. Okay, so algicides can also be used to supplement your chlorine. That's a third way. You can add Algicil is our poly 60 algicide as a high quality polymer. It'll kill algae by suffocating it. It forms like a bubble around it called a micelle. It forms a bubble, doesn't allow the respiration to occur. So every living thing needs some sort of respiration. That's how it works to kill things. But it also, the same way works really well as a preventative, and it has some properties similar to the flocculants where it has a positive charge and it'll actually coagulate, particles, impurities in the water, dead algae, dead microorganisms. It'll coagulate them and, and let the filtration more easily remove them, filter them out. So, if you were gonna use this as a preventative or to try to reduce chlorine use in your pool, I would just add a small dose, whatever the directions say per however many gallons your pool is, and add the small dose once a week, and that's how you'll get the most out of it as a supplement, and reducing your chlorine demand, your chlorine usage. So any of these things, algicides, clarifiers, any of those, or adding borax, adding them as a once a week preventative maintenance dose, is a good way to supplement your chlorine and reduce your usage. So any of these things will reduce your chlorine demand to some extent. There might be a little bit of an art to it. Different. Every pool is a little bit different. So you can, decide based on whatever parameters you have, which one will be best, or some combination. You can use one of them. You can use any combination. Yeah. Prevention is much easier than fixing problems. So the whole point of this is to try to prevent any serious problems and not lose out on any swimming days. And some of the algicides, I guess you can clarifiers, borax, any of these will reduce your chlorine use. So yeah, okay. The like Ketrol Plus, which is our staining scale, is in a lot of opening kits, but this won't affect your chlorine usage. It's in the opening kits, not because it has anything to do with killing microorganisms, but it's similarly, it's a good thing to add at the beginning of the season to prevent other, potentially serious problems, metal stains and calcium carbonate scaling. So that's it. I mean, hopefully you got something from this that you can use. If you have any questions or want to reach out, you can email me, Rein @njonas.com.